Hello and welcome back to Copic in the Craft Room. Michelle Houghton here. Last week I started this cute image by Dreamerland Crafts and I colored him up. And this week I'm going to come back in and start tackling the background. So if you haven't seen the video, I did record how I colored this young man and his wings, cardboard wings, as he takes off into flight. So if you want to see that, go right back onto our YouTube channel page and it's going to be there for you to see. Now I'm going to start with the sky and I've got a B quadruple zero. So a B with 4 zeros, that means it's going to be super light and it's going to fade into that white really easily. I'm using the chisel nib at this point and I'm doing lots of small circles, and then I'm coming in with the colorless blender and softening that top edge. I'm not aiming for the top of my sketchbook page. I'm just trying to get some kind of air and atmosphere around him. I've put that horizon line, kind of that edge, a little bit higher on the page so I have room to do some ground. I do apologize. I've tilted my sketchbook and so suddenly it ended up a little bit off kilter here. I do get it back on. It's going to be off and on because I've zoomed in so tight. But again, really just back and forth between that B, 4 zeros, and the colorless blender softening that top edge. And that's really it for the sky. The next thing I'm coming in with is a C1. So that's a cool gray, and it's a 1, so it's pretty light. And I'm really just scribbling here. So I'm not necessarily doing small circles. I'm really just going a back and forth kind of sketchy work. And I'm sketching in this trail or pathway underneath this little boy. Now I don't necessarily want it super even. I'd like a nice base color, but I don't necessarily want it even. So I'm leaving it loose. C3 is next, and I'm literally going to take that brush nib and dab this color in. It's not super small dots, it's bigger dots, and I'm dabbing it in to add some texture as much as anything. So in my head, this is kind of like a gravel or a rock path that he's using as his runway, of course. And I'm going to focus some of those darker dots in underneath him. And excuse my head as I show you my messy hair coming through the video. I think I just worked out when I did this one. And so I've got these dots coming in. So C5 is next. Again, now I'm going to focus that into some of those darker areas. And really this is just about texture as much as anything. But while I'm doing my texture, I'm also adding in that cast shadow from our little boy, his wings and his legs. And body. So I've focused in that darker area. I've scattered some of that C5 throughout the pathway, and then I come in with a BV25. This is going to add a little bit of blue to that and blue violet to that deepest shadow, and that's going to increase the realism of that. I'm adding a little bit more texture, and mostly with this colorless blender, I'm softening at this point. So I am dotting again, and as I go through the shadow, I slow down and hold that nib in place to add those lighter dots in there. But I'm dabbing on top of these other colors to soften them together and ease up so it's not so much polka dot looking. Then I'm going to go to the ground. And unfortunately, again, I have shifted my paper a little bit, but I'm starting again with kind of a scribble. And you're going to see that here as I work over across the page. It's really a back and forth scribble with that chisel nib. It's a YG91. And again, I've opened my chisel nib this time. And I've switched colors to a YG63. I'm still using that chisel nib. And look how I'm doing that back and forth little scribble. And now I'm letting some of that YG91 show through. Going way up on that tip of that chisel nib to add some of that grass-like texture to that hill that he's running along. And now I've grabbed a third color, YG67, and now I've switched over to my brush nib. I'm doing lots of nice little scribbles and flicks with that brush nib to show that grass texture again. Now it's going to get easier. Now you're going to see this whole process. It's the exact same process I just went through. YG91 to start. Little back and forth. Notice I'm keeping it mostly vertical. I'm trying to show a grass texture. And so because I'm not filling it in solid, I'm going to see some of those brush strokes. So I want to pay attention a little bit to which direction my brush or Copic is going. So I'm trying to keep it pretty vertical up and down. Harder to do when I get close into him. There were some holes in his little cardboard airplane. So I'm filling those in with the background color. That one top hole actually is sky, so I needed to go back and add that sky color. But again, back and forth, kind of scribble loose. It's very open. I can still see some of the paper color coming through. not real solid and purposefully not smooth. YG63 is next. I'm going to go across the entire area with this. And again, now I'm even more focused on keeping that directional little scribble going. So it's a vertical kind of back and forth, trying as best I can to keep it random so that it's loose and looks a little more realistic, like grass. Coming in, it is hard around those wings, but I'm doing my best. Going up on the tip of that chisel nib now with that still YG63, adding a second layer. It does darken, and so I'm adding my first more detail on top of that. It would be sharper if I let that area dry first, but I haven't, so it's still soft. YG67 is going to finish it off again. And again, I'm doing little clumps and little flicks and little tiny zigzags. The flicks go up, so they start down and flick upward, trying to make that grass-like texture. Come across this second side, and I'm just about finished with this guy. So kind of three areas. I've got the sky, I've got his runway or gravel path, and then some grass. All right, well, this took longer than I anticipated, and I think if you've hung in there both weeks, you've realized that I've split this into two. And this week we are tackling the background of the image. So if you didn't see me coloring this little boy, you need to backtrack 1 week, and I've got him in there. But as I got going, I really wanted to complete this image and fill the whole page, and so I'm thrilled with how it turned out. I created the background that he's sitting on, kind of that grassy hill, and the runway that he's running down, maybe a kind of gravel path. The idea for the pants, hopefully I talked about in the first video, but if I didn't, that came directly from the image. So I did some similar color tones that was on here with my Copic markers. I didn't realize, honestly, until I just looked at it now, how close I stuck to that. I did want that plaid pattern on his pants. But overall, excited about how this turned out, and I really am thrilled that you joined me to see both weeks and see the whole thing finish up. If you have not had a chance to do so, please like our channel so we can add our videos to your inbox each week. Also, like the video, please. That would be awesome if you enjoyed and learned anything new. We also have a ton of great inspiration and Copic information over at our Facebook page. So Facebook Copic in the Craft Room. We would love to see you there as well. If you've got any requests for videos or questions about Copic markers in general, this is a great place to ask. So make sure to include your question in the comment section. I am listening, and I will get back to you right away. Thanks for joining me this week. Have a happy, colorful week.